So we are in the world and we are here for a set time. And whilst here in this temporary world, we are having a human experience. While here, we identify ourselves with the family we are part of, the community we are from, the ethnic culture we belong to, and the relationships we have, the circumstances and the situations that we're living through. But in reality, we are none of these things. We are spiritual beings first and foremost, which is having an experience of these things. But as soon as our soul leaves our body, all of these identities which we've built up around us will simply dissolve, and what will remain is our real essence, which is a soul and awareness. While here in the world, naturally, we become attached to it, and we all have different attachments. For some of us, it may be material wealth that we attach to, others status and titles, whilst for others it could be attachment with relationships. I want to explore what it means to be attached and how this can be detrimental on a spiritual level, and how to practice having a healthy detachment from the world. For the purpose of today, I'm going to just use the example of being attached to relationships. This can be any relationship in the world, and we have many relationships that we experience and that we're attached to. When we have an unhealthy attachment to our relationships, then our inner peace, tranquility, and happiness depends on those people being, doing, and acting a certain way that keeps us inwardly calm and at peace. However, when that person is not being, doing, and acting in that way, then it causes us massive stress, anxiety, tension, anger, and fear in our bodies. Our mind and body is not in a state of peace and calm. There's this inner war raging within us. These emotions are known as survival or lower emotions, and they switch off a certain part of our brain that allows us to think and make informed decisions. So what does that make us do? It makes us extremely reactive. We've all been there. Someone has done something, and let's say it has made you really angry, and you've reacted. You've lashed out, said something you shouldn't have, acted out in a way that wasn't acceptable, only to later on regret your words and actions. There's no denying that when we've calmed down from the experience, whether that was a few minutes, a few hours, or a few days later, we know that we could have dealt with that situation in a much better way. I'm not excusing the behavior of the person who made you feel angry. It could have been completely valid for you to be angry with them. But when you took action from that place of anger, it compromised on your ability to take a better response to that situation. You see, the world is such, you'll never have it the way that you want it to be, never. Accept that. Your relationships will never be the way that you want them to be, and if your inner peace and happiness depends on them, then you will be forever played like a puppet. This is what you would call as having an unhealthy attachment, and you're on a path of self-destruction by continuously releasing those survival emotions that I mentioned earlier. You see, our heart should always be in this state of bliss and harmony, and if it's not, then we know that we need to detach from the world. So how can we learn to have a healthy detachment, you're wondering? It's not that easy, you're saying to yourself, and is it even possible? So here's some strategies that you can try out to find that inner balance again. First and foremost, you need to see a situation for what it is, no less and no more. So let me use the example here that maybe some of you may be able to relate to. So let's say your teenage son or daughter are not dressing the way you want them to be. Maybe the jeans are a bit too tight, a bit too high up. Your daughter could be wearing way too much makeup. See the situation for how it is. A teenage boy or girl is dressing as a typical teenager. They're expressing their personal identity. They're trying to fit in with their peers. What starts causing us the pain is the inner dialogue, the inner speech that is going off in our head. I can't believe the way he or she is dressed. After all the times I've taught them how to, dress modestly. What are people going to think? They're on the wrong track. I've failed them. I'm such a bad mother, etc., etc. This is you bringing your ego, your story, your baggage into it. It's the meaning that you're attaching to this situation that is causing you this immense amount of pain, not the external or outer reality. It's your inner thoughts and your feelings that are causing you the pain, so be mindful of that. Also remind yourself that although you may want the world to function according to your desire and will, this can never happen, and you are needy of this to happen, or you shouldn't be needy of this to happen. The difference is that when you become needy of something and you don't get it, it cripples you inwardly and it destroys you. In reality, everyone is acting out their God-given free will. That is their right. It doesn't mean that we excuse someone's behavior, but we have to acknowledge that people do and will exercise their power of choice. And those choices may not be in alignment with our values and beliefs, but ultimately everyone is on their own personal spiritual journey. Our inner peace cannot and should not be dependent upon their choices and their expression of their will. If it is, then you will never achieve the peace that you so desire. So remember that these relationships are temporary. They are worldly relationships, and as soon as you leave this body, gone are those attachments. Change your perspective on the situation. So as a spiritual being, remember that you're having a human experience, and that experience has the purpose of pushing you to grow on a spiritual level. So when our external relationships are testing us, it is a litmus test, a measure that we have some inner work that still needs to take place. Oftentimes we are really good at putting up this front that we're not affected by our relationships, but inwardly it's another story. It's bothering us massively, and this war raging within us. We're experiencing an inward reaction even though we are outwardly not reacting. So acknowledge that this is taking place. Find a time within the day, preferably when there'll be no disturbances, and focus on your body. Focus on these emotions that are coming up. Acknowledge them without giving them energy. So look at them as if you were an outside observer and looking in at what is happening. This will stop the energetic charge that you're giving the experience. These tests are a good way of checking how much inner work is still needed. It's a continuous learning journey. These experiences aren't happening to us, but they're happening for us. So learn the lesson that they're trying to teach you. And as you come to learn the lessons, and as you begin to function from a higher and higher awareness, you will learn to become more resilient, more calm, more at peace, and you'll be able to function from a healthier place of detachment, which will allow you to give the very best of yourself to the world as you're coming from a responsive place of love. This is what the world needs right now: spiritual growth and love.